Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game, and it's a preview of the fourth match day of the Premier League as West Ham United take on newly promoted Wolverhampton Wanderers. Before we get started, make sure you download the One Football app. The link is in the description below. It's completely free. And keep up to date with all the latest team news from both sides ahead of Saturday's what could be a big game. We'll get on to that in a second of the importance. But before we do that, Charlie, what is your thoughts on Wolves so far?
They're a very good team. They deserve to get promoted. They absolutely destroyed the Championship last year. They play incredibly good football, and a lot of the time when teams come up from the Championship, they almost can be accused of being a bit one-dimensional at times, and they just aren't. Like, they can attack you in several different ways, and then they have the personnel to back them up as well. They're a very, very good side who I'm surprised. Like, I remember when Newcastle came up last season, whenever it was, and everyone's going, "Oh, they might make Europe," and I'm like, "Okay, it's Newcastle. Rafa Benitez is good, but the personnel just isn't there." Wolves sort of have both of those things on lock. Like, I'm surprised there's not more people saying that. I don't think they're going to make Europe, but I'm surprised the hype isn't around them because they are an incredibly good team.
Tom, what about yourself? 3 games in so far, but just 1 point on the board. I think it's just 1 point, maybe it's two.
2 points.
Two. What are you making of Wolves so far, Tom?
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I saw them on the opening weekend against Everton, and I watched a bit of them last weekend, and I think they've, they had all the right pieces. I think Charlie's right. When Newcastle came up last year, the expectation, and I think they got near close to 100 points or whatever, or close to whatever. There was almost this expectation of them. But Wolves, what they did last year and the money that they spent, there's an even bigger expectation. They've got a fantastic squad. Obviously, they've got an unbelievable playmaker in Ruben Neves, who I'm just gobsmacked, other than super agent that's helped him get him there, how he still stayed at Wolves after last year, because he's clearly good enough to play in a top side. So it's exciting times for Wolves. I've been really impressed with them, and I think they're probably close to pushing us and maybe Everton and the likes of those who are thinking top half of the table, not just for survival.
You both mentioned pressure in terms of Wolves coming up, Tom. But is this the most pressure you've known it for promoted sides coming into the Premier League in terms of expectation from the neutral, if you like? Yeah,
I think like Newcastle, when they came up last year, I'm using them again as an example, but it was more, let's just survive this first season. That's what everybody is. Like, Cardiff is almost the realistic expectations of first season, let's try and survive, hope we don't have second season syndrome and get relegated. But I think obviously in terms of the squad that they have, I think they're owned by Chinese investors. I think they're the investors there, and obviously super agent Mendes or whoever he is, pulling the strings. It's weird. There is that expectation of it. They're a huge club in terms of English football, Wolves. So it's nice to see them back where they are. But I've never known of such expectations for a team coming up, maybe other than the Newcastle last year.
Lots of expectations and pressure, Charlie. But what is a good season realistically? Come May, what's a good season for Wolves?
Like, if they go down, then it's absolute disaster for them. As the amount of money they've spent looking towards a top half finish, they really should. There can be if they are in any threat of relegation at any point, then it should be considered a failure on their part, because they have spent a lot of money and they've got a very, very good team. I think they've got a team better than some Premier League sides who you'd expect to be in and around the bottom already. So I think for them, if there's any sort of hint of relegation, any threat of relegation, then it should be considered failure. If you're saying what's a good season, I think the top 10 for them would be amazing.
And Charlie talked there about a lot of money spent. They brought in household names, which is quite impressive for a side that's come up. But who is your danger man, if you like, for Saturday?
They've got a few, and that's the thing. Like, they can get goals from a couple of different places. When you looked at, like, last season, their striker was good. I can't remember his name, but he didn't pull in the numbers. And then they went and got Raul Jimenez, who not only was playing European football, we've tried to get him in the past and failed. So that's a very big signing for them, and he's a guy who can do it both on the floor and in the air. So that's obviously a big danger. And then whoever plays wide for them, it would probably be, I don't know, Jota and Costa probably, who have been starting recently. So I suspect it'll be them. But again, both of those are very, very good as well, and can create and score as well. And then even if we get tired, and then they get tired, Adama Traore will just come and drift past all our players again. So they've got a lot of people who are very, very dangerous, and that's what's most concerning for me.
Yeah, I think both of us, Wolves and West Ham, can look at last season and be feel hard done by to only get 1 point between us out of our performances against Arsenal and Man City. I thought they were brilliant against Man City when I watched them. They were causing problems down the flanks, which they were taking the game to Man City, which is rare. They weren't afraid to commit bodies. Usually when teams play City, when they go forward, only 4 players might go forward and the rest will be a bit conservative. Wolves went forward in numbers. They had their game plan. They stuck to it. Raul Jimenez was an absolute handful for the defenders. I think if our defenders dwell on the ball on Saturday, we will get punished by Wolves. Their midfield, I think, is better than ours. I'm worried about the midfield battle. I think they'll come up on top on that. And that's where Pellegrini is going to have to come up with the answers. But I'm going to ask the questions about that in a second. But before I do, it's boat time on Saturday. If you want to come down to the boats right outside the London Stadium behind the East Stand, you can get your tickets. They are below. It might sell out before Saturday, so there might not be any pay in the gate. So get your ticket and join us for a beer and a burger. But Tom, we got beat 3-1 by Arsenal. We had the cup game. While it was against a lower league side, it was quite dominant. But lots of potential changes, or should we be sticking? Let's discuss that. Right back, Zabaleta played against Wimbledon, but Fredericks was in against Arsenal. Who would you like to see right back against Wolves?
I think Fredericks. I think he's rotated him a lot at the start of the season just to maybe get an idea. Maybe he wasn't sure if Fredericks was ready for the Premier League, but I think he was arguably one of our best players at the weekend, Fredericks. His pace up and down the right is brilliant. He can help going forward. And I think, obviously, Wolves have created a lot from the flanks. So to have that pace in behind, in the defence for us is what we need. And it's not that Zabaleta can't do that job. I just think there might be a couple of occasions where his, footballing skill, can't outmatch, Jota's pace or Costa's pace. I think is the other guys they've got on the other flank, if they swap sides or whatever. So I'd be playing for Fredericks for this game. As for the rest of the side, I think it's, that team against Wimbledon, arguably they did well, yes. But I think if we can, match up almost like we did against Arsenal, I think, that side probably proved the most this season that they were actually, some changes had happened this summer, having Sanchez in that midfield role. So I think if we see a side that's similar to the one we had against Arsenal, I think we've got more chance of picking up 3 points at the weekend.
Charlie, we've got 3 senior centre-backs, or 3 fit senior centre-backs. Diop looks like he's emerging. He's the number 1 choice in the last couple of games. But the question mark is who partners him. Well, Vaughan partners him against Wimbledon. However, you could argue he was at fault for. I certainly think he was at fault for their goal. And then it's not something that's been a stranger to us this season already. So who would you like to see in beside Diop on Saturday?
Yeah, Balbuena for me. I agree with you. I think he was at fault. I don't think it's entirely his fault, but he's a League One player. You're a Premier League player who plays sometimes for the Italian national squad. You should be able to deal with that, but he didn't. My concern with Diop is a little bit that his distribution versus Wimbledon was a lot better, but his distribution has been a bit poor. And against a team who are going to press us, I'm a bit concerned about that. But for me, it would be Diop and Balbuena just to start because they look like, as you say, they're emerging as the most solid combo.
And Charlie, at left back, it sounded earlier that Pellegrini was pressed on this a little bit, and he didn't seem to give a confirmative answer as to who he would prefer, Cresswell or Masuaku. Which one would you prefer, Charlie?
For me, this game, Masuaku, purely for the pace. I think when we play possession, we press up higher, and then we're going to need to get back as quickly as possible because when they break with pace, and we're going to need a guy who's going to be able to get back faster. And I think Masuaku is a quicker player than Cresswell. So for me, Masuaku. I
disagree. Tom, do you disagree?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head there. No, I usually agree with you, Charlie. What are you doing? I'd be putting Cresswell in there simply because I think that Masuaku is just too attacking, and he's shown against Arsenal. Although he's brilliant and he can, whip a fantastic cross, and he's got all those assets going forward. Most of our goals have been conceded coming down from that right hand side this season. I think Cresswell didn't do anything wrong against Wimbledon to lose his place. So for me, I think Pellegrini must realise that he was almost waiting for Cresswell to come back being fit. So now he has that choice. I think he'd probably play Cresswell there and hopefully, we hope that he'll do a little bit better defensively than Masuaku would.
I have to agree, Tom. I think going into Tuesday, I don't think there was that many shirts up for grabs after the Arsenal performance, but I do think Masuaku's was one of them. And while it was against Wimbledon, I don't think Cresswell put a foot wrong whatsoever. And I think he took his chance. You can only beat what's in front of you. And Cresswell did that with ease. And when I watched him against Man City, Costa was the one that really bothered me watching. I thought, oh, crikey, he was playing on the right against Mendy for his first half. Second half, he switched over and went up against Walker, and he handled both of them. He caused both of them trouble. And their centre-backs, are a lot better than ours. Let's put sorry, their fullbacks are a lot better than ours. But one position where a shirt might not have been up for grab, Tom, was the centre midfield. Sanchez and Wilshere played against Arsenal. The only one, Mark Noble's currently a doubt for Saturday, just so you know. He did return to training today, which is Thursday, but he's still a doubt. Declan Rice was arguably man of match on Tuesday. Him and Snodgrass seemed to be the two that was getting all the plaudits on social media, etc. Would you be making a change in there, Tom, or would you be sticking with Sanchez and Wilshere?
No, I thought I was sticking with Sanchez. I think it was, we said in the Arsenal preview that we probably thought that that Pellegrini would play him. I think he's his man. He's who he signed for that role, and we were all doubting him and saying, bloody hell, it's just this geezer might be a little bit past it. But I think everybody was pleasantly surprised, actually, when you buy a specialist at that position, which is to be a centre defensive midfielder whose nickname happens to be the Rock or whatever. He's going to do that, and he was absolutely fantastic against Arsenal. And you can see that we've lacked in that position for ages, and it's just a shame after Arnautovic went off that game sort of disappeared. But for me, I think that same midfield two have to start. It's nothing that Deck did wrong. I just think that Pellegrini, when having a choice, he will choose the guy that he has chosen to sign this window. And I think having Wilshere in there, you can see his movement off the ball is brilliant, the passing and moving. And I think when we don't have somebody like Lanzini, he kind of fills that role, that popping up in the right spaces, and I think he was excellent again. So yeah, for me, it's Sanchez and Wilshere in the centre midfield.
Anderson is invested in the attacking midfielder role, slightly more central against Arsenal, and likely to stay there unless he decides to put Hernandez up front alongside Arnautovic. So Charlie, that leaves two positions left. Your two wingers, Snodgrass and Antonio, start against Arsenal. Would you be sticking with that, or would you be throwing a curveball in there? Perez didn't do very much against Wimbledon, and Yarmolenko, while he played well against Wimbledon, it was his first start since I think it was January, so it might be a bit too much too soon for the Ukrainian winger.
Potentially, the reason I would consider starting Yarmolenko is because I want someone. What I was impressed by with him against Wimbledon, although again we can stress the opposition is Wimbledon, he constantly looks to drive basically directly at the centre backs and then pop off shots. And we did see some cutting outside and crossing as well, which is nice to see. But in a game against Wolves, where we might be starting Arnautovic not 100% fit, or whoever we end up starting up front, Hernandez potentially as well, I think we need to pressurise the defence and help whoever's up front as much as possible. And so for me, I would consider Yarmolenko. However, as you've both said, Snodgrass and Antonio haven't really done anything. The people who have played haven't really done anything wrong. They've not really put too many foots wrong, and it'd be hard to drop any of them. But if I'm thinking about how are we going to get at them, I trust Yarmolenko to put more pressure on them than any of our other wide options right now.
Tom?
Yeah, I think Yarmolenko looked brilliant. I was quite surprised. I mean, it is obviously only... who did we play? Who did we play on Tuesday? Wimbledon, yeah, there we go. So, I mean, it was only Wimbledon, fair enough, but I think cutting in on his left foot, I think he does look very sharp. He looks, vicious almost at times. He's very big, he's tall, he's lanky. He'll cause a lot of problems, much like Arnautovic does. So I think he offers that something different. So for me, I'm ready to see Antonio come off the bench. I wasn't impressed with him at all at Arsenal. It's just the same old with Antonio. But I think Snodgrass, I asked for him probably to start against Arsenal, and I'm glad in a way that he's had that second chance to prove to the West Ham fans that actually he is quite good, because I think he's a lot of the time he's been a scapegoat this season. It's like, oh, it's Robert Snodgrass, whatever. But he's got a wicked left foot on him, like from corners and everything. He gets some real whip and dip and bend on them, and I think he's dangerous. Given the chance for him to put a cross into the box, I think he's very dangerous, and I think he worked well out wide with Anderson going through the centre. So I'm hoping that he goes, maybe Snodgrass on the left, Anderson through the middle, and Yarmolenko on the right for this one.
Yeah, that's how I would like to see it, Tom. I mean, I'm not Snodgrass' biggest fan. I'm not one of the ones. I've seen a lot of people sort of converted, if you like, by saying Snodgrass is a good player. I'm not converted yet. I think he works hard. There's no doubt about that. He'll always give 100%. I'm still not sure. I'm still not convinced he's good enough, unfortunately. He's got the footballing brain. I just don't think he's got the pace. He's not got the mobility, if you like. Antonio's the complete opposite. He's got the mobility. He just don't have the football. And on Tuesday at one point, Yarmolenko finally, it was late on, Yarmolenko finally got one-on-one with the defender. Antonio literally ran into him. And I just thought, what are you doing? You know, if he ran away from Yarmolenko and tried to pull the defender out the way, it would have helped him. But instead, he just ran straight at his own player. I just thought that's why we're sort of trying to get away from Antonio and the team a little bit. We're missing that. And it doesn't matter who you're playing. What we can attribute to Yarmolenko's game on Tuesday was first touch is a first touch, regardless of who you're playing. Your ball control is your ball control. The way you try and go past the defenders the same, whether it's League One or Premier League, you're still going to have the same techniques. You're still going to have the same ability. And the one thing he's got that I don't think we've seen enough so far is an early release. Too often I find that our players are quite greedy. They try take 3 touches when they should only take 2. I think Yarmolenko sometimes tries to take 1 when he should try and take 2. But that's what we want to see is end ball was a bit dodgy on Tuesday night. That'll come with fitness and confidence, I think. And the only way to get that is by being on the pitch. The only risk is, though, if you start Yarmolenko, you're going to have 2 half-fit players on the pitch at the same time. And Marko Nautovic, a bit of a doubt. He is available for Saturday. There was a lot of translation lost in the conference earlier when Pellegrini was asked if he's out, and he said yes, but he didn't mean he's out injured, because Pellegrini later went on to say he's been training all week, etc. So he is due to play. Charlie, we're down at the bottom of the table, no points after 3 games. Is this a big game, or do we need to put into context and say the league's 38 games long, regardless of the outcome on Saturday? We need to remain calm because Pellegrini, I think it's evident in the last 2 games that he is getting his game plan together slowly but surely.
I think we have to put it into context of the entire season, but also have to put it into context. I think there's more pressure on it because of the context of our immediate fixtures as opposed to the season as a whole. I think when you look at Palace last year, for example, and how horrendously they started, and it wasn't even like they were slowly building and had a few unlucky results. No, they were completely and utterly woeful for the first 7 games or whatever it was, and still finished above us. And they had a managerial change in there, which was the complete flop of philosophy of players who didn't even have a transfer window and all of this stuff. We're starting to see signs of us adopting the philosophy and adopting the play style that we hoped Pellegrini would bring. And I think that although we do need to start getting points, I'm confident that if we keep showing performances like we did in the last game and in Wimbledon as well, that even though we're facing big sides, we might be able to actually take some scouts, whether it be 1 point or 3 in the future.
Tom, are you confident heading into this one on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I am, because I think it's, like Charlie said, I think I'd be more worried if it was, we'd lost the opening 3 games, we'd been smashed about, and there was no real idea or game plan behind it. So you can clearly see what Pellegrini wants. He wants the ball played on the floor. He wants quick, short, sharp passing football. He wants players to move into space. He wants, the defence to play a high line. I said it on the Arsenal preview. He's not going to change that style of play just because a few results went bad or a few players, for a wobbly that, things weren't looking good. So I think he's finally getting his system the way he wants it. And I think if we'd have finished half the chances we'd have finished or created in the first 3 games, we might be looking at a different thing. So there's no time to panic. It's a must-win confidence-wise. I think we got that against Wimbledon, but to get that first Premier League win, especially going into a run of games that are going to be extremely tough over the next month and a half, it is in a way. It's like we need to win it just to be on the front foot. So I'm mildly confident, but I'm still wary at the same time of just how good Wolves can potentially be.
I still think Bournemouth's the only game we've lost points where we expected to pick them up at the start of the season. I think going away to Arsenal and going away to Liverpool getting beats, no shock. Nobody's offended by that, sorry. For Saturday, I was reasonably confident until I watched Wolves play Manchester City. I thought we should get something there. But then when I watched that game, their strengths sort of come up against our weaknesses, if that makes sense. Our weaknesses are our fullbacks. We all know that. But that's where Wolves are strong. Our weaknesses are centre midfield. That's where Wolves look strong. But they also look vulnerable at the back as well. And that's arguably where hopefully we can capitalise on and get goals. I'd be surprised this is 0-0 on Saturday. I think there's going to be goals for both teams in this one. It should be an entertaining game. But I think we need to put into context, and that is the league is 38 games long, not 4. So even if Saturday doesn't go to plan, we need to have faith. We need to stick Pellegrini. And I would much rather draw this game 2-2 and see the Pellegrini way than scrap a 1-0 like we have done under Bilic and Moyes, etc., where we just get a goal and just defend for the rest of the game. I don't want to see that. I would rather have less points, but see the way Pellegrini was a proper attack of football, because it will come. Eventually it will come, and we will benefit from this process eventually. But will we benefit it on Saturday? Charlie, may I have your score prediction, please?
I'm hella concerned. I think we might be able to scrape a goal out of it, but to be honest with you, I think they're going to beat us. I think it's going to be 2-1 to Wolves.
Tom?
I think is I keep seeing this Pellegrini football, and I do get optimistic because we were so good against Arsenal. You know, everybody thought, you know, if Arnautovic had probably stayed on, we would have won that game. So no, I'm confident for this one this weekend. I think there will be goals as well. I'm gonna go with 3-2.
I think there'll be goals. I think there'll be cards. Chris Kavanagh's referee loves a card. So have a little look. Raul Jimenez is getting booked. If he plays like he did against Man City, Raul Jimenez is getting booked. I'm going to go for 2-1 West Ham as well. I think we've got enough about us. I think we've been unlucky so far. I don't think we deserved no points at this after the first 3 games. I think we deserve something. Saying that, Wolves arguably deserve more, but you have to remember their draw. They drew against 10 men Leicester. I think they got beat by. I think Everton might have got a player sent off the first game as well.
2-2, yeah.
Then against Wolves, against City, they did really well. But anyway, that's it from Hamish Chat. That's been Charlie, that's been Tom, I've been Gio. Drop a like and if you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below what team you would like to see Pellegrini put out on Saturday and give us your score prediction. Download that One Football app, get your ticket for the boats. We'll see you there for a beer and a burger and hopefully 3 points to West Ham.